Hey, Luminary, it's the last Libra Solar Eclipse, and this marks the end of a powerful cycle that began all the way back in October 2023. In this episode, we're going to explore how the Libra eclipses have quantum leaped your personal power and growth by shifting your relationship dynamics. We're going to look at how to close up this cycle so that you can begin a new way of being. And we'll take a peek at October's astrology. Let's get ready to leap and dive in. If you're a subscriber, thank you for joining me again. And if you're new here, welcome to Star Powered. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your host, a multiracial, multifaceted professional musician turned web designer turned astrologer. Astrology has helped me overcome an identity crisis by revealing my star powered strengths. Now I use these strengths to guide healers, entrepreneurs, and changemakers like you in making their mark through astrology. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We are almost now through that gateway or portal or whatever you call it of our eclipse seasons. Our eclipse season began a couple of weeks ago with our Pisces full moon eclipse. Remember that eclipses come usually in pairs and we have them every 6 months. But this eclipse at the end of our current eclipse season is actually almost completing an entire cycle that started all the way back in October of 2023. When our lunar nodes moved into Aries and Libra, it started a 19-month season of Aries and Libra eclipses. We are really lucky that we get those 19 full months of eclipses in that one axis because we are shifting and changing. And sometimes quantum shifts can feel like they're happening overnight. But indeed, they actually are the result of many moons of roots deepening and growing. And then all of a sudden, we see the shoot spark through the soil into the sun. And we're like, oh, breakthrough. But meanwhile, there was a ton of growth happening underneath. And so, this growth for all of us has been in terms of our relationships and how we give our power away in relationships. That's that Libra South node, and who we are here to be. What is our personal power, our personal direction, our sense of identity and self with that Aries North node set of eclipses. So I want us to reflect back as we are wrapping up this particular eclipse season and almost done with wrapping up the Aries Libra eclipse cycle, all that has shifted for you. When we take a step forward or take a step inward and just look at the here and now over the last 2 weeks, if you listened back to that last episode where I was talking about the Pisces lunar eclipse with that Virgo sun, we are really talking about integrating our fears, noticing that our fears are here for us, that they have gifts that we are meant to recognize and unfold. In my community, and what I had suggested in the podcast was to simplify this integration of our fears by taking a look at each one of our chakra energy centers and seeing which center needed the most attention. I love in my community Star Powered Circle where people have been working through each of their 7 chakras and really recognizing that their fears haven't exactly been living where they thought they were going to be. Some people thought that their fears were going to be more related to safety, but it actually had to do with the grief and opening up their heart, like looking at how can we love again when we've lost in the past. I know for me, mine has really been rooted in my sense of value, my sense of shame, and how to not compare myself to others and not give away my value by always putting others up on a pedestal. I feel like I've been doing this work for like decades now, but I guess it was time to do this all over again. Because personally, for me, this eclipse season has just been a full circle moment. So in this episode, I have a lot to cover. We're going to be talking about the significance of this Libra solar eclipse and what this means for you as a leader and a change maker. We're going to really explore how your relationship dynamics have shifted since 2023. I want you to also look at why equitable relationships can be so difficult and how that shifts when we shift. I'll be offering some Libra solar eclipse reflection questions so that you can really harness and close up one cycle and begin a new cycle. And then I'll be offering you some personalized Libra solar eclipse affirmations based on your rising sign. Lastly, we'll be going into the highlights of October's astrology. But first, a personal story. I am so excited to let you know. I've been sitting on this for a long time. You might have gotten hints from me if you follow me on Instagram or if you are friends with me on Facebook. I've been dropping these hints and I finally released it to the world. Well, my authorship journey has finally taken me to become a published author. Wiser Books will be publishing my first published book coming in spring of 2026. Yes, it takes that long of a time for these books to come into fruition. I am super excited that Wiser Books reached out to me for me to submit a proposal. Wiser Books has been publishing esoteric and occult teachings from around the world since 1957. And when I look at my astrology library, I can see all of my favorite astrologers that are also Wiser Books authors. From Liz Green to Karen Curry Parker to Molly McCord to Teresa Reed, some of my all-time favorite and most respected astrologers and spiritual teachers are also authors for Red Wheel Wiser. It is such an honor to be able to have my work published. For right now, the working title is Astrology for Changemakers, and that's not exactly the title yet, but you know it's going to be about how to interpret your natal chart for personal strengths, confidence, and personal power so that you can lead and make your mark. Now, just a little bit about the timing of this all and how this aligns with this eclipse season is I signed the contract for this right around the lunar eclipse, that Pisces lunar eclipse. And that was kind of a moment for me because this, not only did this start, I feel like this really started for me all the way back in 2019 when I applied for a scholarship to the Diverse Wisdom initiative that was being given out by Hay House. And at that time, they invited a number, I think there's about a dozen of us authors or prospective authors of color. And we were invited to Houston to attend this workshop and get coaching. And I met some of the most amazing people at this conference. I met my friend Asha Frost. I met Nancy Levin. I met just like amazing people all through this workshop at Hay House. And unfortunately, at the time, I submitted my book proposal and I wasn't selected. And I actually felt okay about this. This was in the beginning of 2020. Now, I felt okay with not having my book published because I felt really certain that I was going to write not one, not two, but a lot of books. And so I decided that I was going to go self-publish books. And so by the end of December of 2020, I self-published 2 books. One of them, which is sitting right behind me, Star Powered Brand, which still sells quite regularly. And it's about your sun, moon, and rising. And it was really kind of like this seed of an idea that since 2020 to since now 2024, so much more has been fleshed out. And it's missing one key piece in terms of like your descendant and who you are here to serve. I'm telling you all of this because, again, when we see this breakthrough, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to become a published author, I want you to understand that this has been 4 years or more in the making. And so I self-published my books. I kept on doing my podcast. I kept on developing my framework and my curriculum, and I kept on building my audience. I kept on establishing different relationships. And then this year, when we had that Uranus Jupiter conjunction on April 20th, I remember this date because my best friend Jason and his husband, well, at the time, they were husband to be, were getting married on 420 in San Francisco. And I was part of the bridal party, or the wedding party. My son was part of the wedding party. It was just such a beautiful ceremony. And I remember getting ready in the hotel room. We were all dressed up beautifully. Everything was super exciting. And I didn't have anything to do. So I hop onto my Instagram and I saw a direct message from Teresa Reed. Now, Teresa Reed and I, we've known each other for several years. She's always been such an inspiration to me because I've seen her write all of her books. She's actually finishing up her 11th book right now. I love her Astro Biz forecast that she sends to entrepreneurs and leaders. I love her no nonsense way about talking about astrology and talking about tarot. And I highly, highly respect her. And I saw this message from Teresa and asking me if I am yet working with a publisher because her publisher is looking for new authors. And she told them about my work about astrology for branding and leadership. And they were very interested in speaking to me. So that was in April. It took a while for us to meet and to get an idea. Then I wrote the proposal, and then I had to pitch it a couple of different times and shift and change it. So again, I'm sharing all of this with you because it takes effort, it takes time, it takes iteration. And then now the deal was sealed and accepted, and now I'll be writing this book. So I am looking forward to this eclipse because this is going to be a new start. While I have lots of the information for the book written, I really want to get clear on this thesis. I want to start off with my intention and a writing routine that's really going to set me up for success because I have until March to hand in my final manuscript. So wish me luck, everybody. And I want to hear your thoughts about what you hope will be in this book. Maybe your story will make it. Thank you for listening to that story, because the real reason why I wanted to share that story is because so many shifts needed to happen within me for this to break through. Back in 2019 and early 2020, before COVID hit, when I went to that Hay House conference with all of these amazing writers and published authors and all of the other amazing prospective authors of color, there was a part of me that just wanted to hide, that didn't feel like I was enough, that I was putting everybody on to pedestals. And if you've been listening to my story in terms of leadership, you know that comparisonitis is really my kryptonite. And I needed to stop giving my power away. So I had all of these kinds of perceived relationships with these different authors, with these different people in my life. And I was putting them up onto pedestals, whether or not they knew it. But I was unintentionally giving my power away, looking for validation from others, looking for other people to make decisions and tell me what to do, because I didn't value my own perspective. I didn't value my own way of looking at astrology more than I did at theirs. And so over the last few eclipses during this Aries and Libra eclipse season, I really felt that I've come into my own, knowing that I'm never deciding again on, looking for outward validation, asking people what they want. Although I just asked you what you might want in the book, so that to give me some ideas and maybe feature your stories in the book, but not to make my decision on what I'm going to write and how I want it to impact others. Okay. That has been a massive breakthrough. And I'm sure you've gone through something similar. So I want you to dig through. Now, remember that this Libra eclipse is our last Libra eclipse of this cycle. Now, in 2023, when the lunar nodes moved into Aries and Libra, I want you to go all the way back to the fall of 2023. I want you to notice what kind of massive breakthroughs you've gone through and what it means to be in relationship. Now, relationship, whether this be a personal relationship, a professional relationship, I want you to think of these relationships that are meant to be equitable. And I'll talk a little bit more about equitable relationships because as you've gone through these massive breakthroughs in what it means to be in relationship, this has happened because of the shifts in identity you have also broken through in yourself. Now, relationships teach you a great deal about who you are. Relationships are powerful mirrors and they show you your growth opportunities that shape your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual development. Now, you, my friend, as a leader or a change maker or business owner looking to make your mark, your relationships with your clients, your peers, your allies are absolutely a reflection of who you are. Now, notice I said clients, peers, allies. We can also add in co-creators and collaborators because we're talking about equitable relationships. I'm not talking about a parent-child relationship where, as the parent, you may have more power, you have more power than the child, and then that shifts when your parents begin to age. I'm not talking about the relationships that you have with your employees because, of course, there's a differential. I'm not talking about the types of relationships where we have to be aware of the power differential, but I'm talking specifically with your relationships to your clients, your peers, your co-creators, because those are, and even romantic partners, those are equitable relationships. And those relationship dynamics, those people that you surround yourself with are absolutely a reflection of who you are. Now, when you change, right, and you do change, you evolve, hopefully for the better, your relationships inevitably shift because you are an integral part of the relationship. Now, sometimes the other person in the relationship grows and evolves alongside with you, yet other times they may resist and preferring you stay the same and stay small because it benefits them. Or they may choose to leave altogether, or you may choose to leave altogether. So I want you to recognize that being part of an equitable relationship in both your personal and professional lives, they require mutual respect, value, and accountability. When you think of respect, I want you to think about that Saturnian aspect of expertise, wisdom, achievement for the long haul. When you think about value, I want you to think of that Venusian process of worthiness, of likability, of mutual support and mutual appreciation. And then accountability. Of course, accountability is like respect, but accountability is taking action. So there's this Mars aspect to it, to advocate and take action and initiate. And so when we're thinking about equitable relationships, we have this Saturn aspect, this Venus aspect, as well as that Mars aspect. Interestingly enough, there is a beautiful water grand trine with all three of those energies for this eclipse. So as we move into the end of this particular eclipse season, I want you to see that there are relationship dynamics that you're finally done with once and for all. When we're thinking about integrating that last eclipse, the Pisces eclipse, about integrating your fear, I want you to notice how your fears are often related to perceived relationships that you may or may not have with somebody. Maybe there was a relationship with somebody who has, taken power for you or has power or control over you. And then you start you start manifesting that dynamic in other areas of your life, or maybe you hold on to an old relationship because of you're afraid to lose them for fear of grief. Whatever those fears are, start to notice how those fears are a lot of times reliant on what others people might think, what other people might do, right? These dynamics are always interrelational. So, as we come upon this particular last Libra eclipse, I want you to notice what relationship dynamics are you finally done with once and for all. Like, I am done with comparing myself to others and putting others on a pedestal. Okay, because as we explore this Libra eclipse, I want you to now see that you've always had this inner power within you, and now it's ready to shine brightly, knowing that you're not going to lose your people. In fact, your people will celebrate your brightness with you because you're surrounding yourself with people who you have equitable relationship dynamics with. So let's explore this a little bit more deeply, because this divine timing of our last South Node Libra solar eclipse is both an ending and a new beginning. And with all solar eclipses, it's our ability, it's a time for us to leap into something new, something unknown. And the reason why we are free to fly and leap is because we are no longer weighed down with an old dynamic that we are done with. And so if you want to reflect back on the last 12 months, I want you to look at how all of these pieces are connected and look at connecting the dots. I want you to first look at that solar eclipse that we had back on October 14th, 2023. Go back into your journals, go back into your calendar for October 14th, 2023, and write down some thoughts and feelings, the people that you were with, what were you struggling with, what were you wanting and desiring at that intention for that Libra solar eclipse. And then fast forward to March 24, 2024. In the springtime, we had a full moon. During Aries season, we had a Libra lunar eclipse. What could you now see that you could no longer see? I want you to start noticing the theme. Okay, so last October, if you've been following me for a while, if you go back and listen to one of the old podcasts or look at an email that I sent last October, I had asked you to recognize the patterns of enmeshment in your leadership. Enmeshment is like this kind of codependency where you're depending on others to make decisions in your life, right? You might have been really tangled in enmeshment back then, looking for validation from others. That was me. Downplaying or undercharging your value. Again, me. Prioritizing other needs over your own. Not so much me. Over compromising or lacking boundaries and seeking approval from others. Those are just some examples of what you might have started noticing back in last October. Okay. I also asked you back then to notice how these relationship dynamics might not have been your own. They might have been shaped by society or your family or cultural conditioning who told you who you were, how you were supposed to act, who you needed to be, who you needed to be in order to survive. Okay, like this is real stuff. But then in March, when we look back at the lunar eclipse, you looked into the mirror to see the unseen and how you were giving and taking in a balanced way, or maybe not. Maybe you were giving too much or taking too much, or different relationships you were giving or taking too much in different ways, or maybe losing yourself in relationships, neglecting the needs of yourself or others. What did you see back in March? I want you to reflect back on these past seasons and circle back for this eclipse because I want you to notice, I want you to recognize, I want you to claim and bring mindful, conscious awareness to what has changed. Because I know it's been huge. If you're not going to look back and recognize what has changed, I'm just going to say that's a little bit of time wasted. This is really good time spent looking back and reflecting because I want you to see how much you have grown. I want you to connect the dots and see the themes. I want you to recognize what power you have recently reclaimed for yourself. Okay. Now, when I look back at last October, I know that I was ready to change my identity to be seen, but I was still looking for outer validation. I was looking at social media likes and comparing myself to other astrologers that I thought were greater and better than me, and just over consulting on all the decisions that I needed to make instead of trusting myself. Okay. And, social media for me, I haven't really been showing up lately. And I'm like, I guess it's okay because I know I'm still making impact when I see like my community members who are doing amazing things and telling me that they've been really supported by me. I just feel this sense of trust. Then this last March, coming back, like these are themes that we have to start to notice these themes because back in March, I was finally able to see that all of the spiritual guides that I really looked up to and the authors and the teachers. I went to a Hay House event in Arizona and I talked to some of my favorite authors. And at first I was like, oh, do I want to go talk to them? They're a bigwig, they're this, they're that, they must be so busy, they don't have time for me. And then I went up and I opened my heart. I said, hello, how are you? How are you feeling? What do you need support with? And I realized I didn't need to look up at them. I just needed to look direct at them because these people that I had put up on a pedestal, they're just like me, struggling with the same things. They were equals. They were not people to be put on pedestals. My eyes were like wide open. And now, fast forward to now, I feel so certain in my own decisions, my own perspectives. I still love hearing guidance from others that help me make my own decisions. I love, just like how when I am guiding my clients, I never tell people what to do. I want to provide them with the information that they need so that they can make their own decisions. There's such a deep sense of clarity, certainty, and ability that I haven't felt before. And I guess the universe has seen me doing this inner journeying because I can't tell you how many breakthroughs I have received in just the last few weeks. Breakthrough after breakthrough in both my personal and professional life, from a book deal to a new home to finding new respect with my husband, where just a couple of weeks ago we were on the verge of divorce because of some really like primal fundamental things that I was just not willing to deal with anymore, and to some of the best music making at world-class venues of my life. I am looking back even just at the last 4 months and so grateful for all of these blessings and breakthroughs. And I know that this all happened because I decided, right, a while ago to do the work. I decided to face my fears. I decided to get really curious about how I was giving away my power to others. I decided about how I wanted to be, who I wanted to be. I took that time to get clear, to intend all the things that I wanted to be. And because I've done this, now I have done these breakthroughs. You can see that these breakthroughs didn't just happen, it took a while, and you can do this too. I want you to notice these subtle shifts that have these profound impacts. So I want to offer some reflection questions for you. If you are not already on my newsletter, I want you to go over to starpowered.com/starcast and you can get my October write-up and you'll get these new moon reflection questions for you. Of course, the solar eclipse is also a new moon, but let's talk about these questions and let's talk about how these questions are related to the astrology. Let's take a look at the chart for this Libra new moon. Okay, so this Libra new moon chart is cast from where I live in San Francisco. So disregard the house structure for now. And this new moon that is a solar eclipse happens on October 2nd, 2024 at 11:49 a.m. Pacific, 2:49 p.m. Eastern. You can see that this Libra new moon is conjunct Mercury by 1 degree and conjunct the south node by 4 degrees. Now, there's not too much of the Earth's population that's going to get to see this ring of fire eclipse. If you happen to live in the Eastern, South Pacific, or in the deepest southern parts of South America, you'll be able to see this eclipse in its totality. But for the rest of us in the United States, we'll see a little bit of the bite of the moon out of the sun. Now, when we have an eclipse, a solar eclipse, it always happens when there is a new moon. And the new moon, of course, is when the moon and the sun meet up at the exact same degree. And you know that new moons are about setting fresh intentions. But we have a little bit of a paradox here because when we're setting fresh intentions, but it's attached to a south node, the south node is about releasing past patterns, getting unstuck from our soul's patterns where we can just kind of fall into that we're really good at, we can fall back on. But if we keep on staying here, we are not moving into our soul's potential and our soul's growth. And so this is one of the reasons why I've been talking about relationship breakthroughs and equitable relationships. Libra, equitable, relationships, bridge building. But with the South Node is how are we giving our power away? And so this whole conversation up to now has been like, well, we're moving past that. What are we done with? And so you can see this represented in the stars, in the symbolism of the stars. We are done with these old relationship dynamics that have kept us stuck in these past South Node patterns because we are ready for a new cycle. Now, we have one last eclipse on this eclipse, the Libra Aries nodal axes, and that's going to happen in the spring with our last Aries eclipse. Okay, and so this is the last Libra one until all the way until 2033. So what relationship dynamic are you done with? Now, the ruler of this Libra eclipse, of course, is Venus. Venus in powerful, trusting, emotionally knowing Scorpio. She wants to go deep. She wants to know that she is safe. She wants to know that she can trust her intuition. And this Venus here is in a beautiful grand trine, a water grand trine with Mars in Cancer, who wants to take action, and Saturn in Pisces, that is calling for respect and intuitive wisdom. So remember when we were talking about, well, what are the requirements of an equitable relationship? We talked about mutual value, Venus, mutual respect, Saturn, and mutual accountability, Mars. What I mean by accountability is sometimes we give support, we receive support. It's not always fair and 50-50, but overall in the long run, it should balance out for an equitable relationship. And so this grand trine is really asking you, are your relationships, your equitable relationships in your personal life? Maybe this is with a best friend or a romantic partner. Maybe this is in your professional life with co-creators or partners or your clients or your different peers. Are these equitable relationships? Do you have this mutual value, mutual respect, and mutual accountability of supporting each other? Can't make this up, right? Like this is from the stars. It's so beautiful. This new moon is also squaring off with Mars. Mars in Cancer, and all of this water energy is really saying that your emotional capacity, and remember the reasons why emotions are so important in terms of like making change in our life is that we have to feel safe. We have to feel emotionally secure to know that we can go out and take those leaps, knowing that even if we fall, we can emotionally pick ourselves up again because we feel safe and secure in our own abilities, in our ability to reach out to our partners in equitable relationships that say, hey, I'm having a little bit of problem, a little bit of a struggle. Could you help me with this? Yes. Right. And so I just find that so beautiful. Now, what else is going on at the sky? We still have our outer generational planets, Pluto and Uranus, here at that at a trine with Neptune right in between. And so, to me, this is just saying that all of the change that we're experiencing right now, this change is for the good. This change is for us to recognize, even on a global stage where there's so much tragedy and war still happening, that this is kind of our tipping point, that we can all come together as a collective to do good together. And the last thing I want to talk about Jupiter. When I talk about the October starcast, Jupiter is at its furthest point out into Gemini right now. And so I just want you to notice that Jupiter will start to come to a stop before it goes into retrograde. So this is the chart of the eclipse, and this is really informing the reflection questions. Okay. So again, to get these reflection questions in writing, make sure that you are signed up for my Starcast. Head on over to starpower.com/Starcast if you're not already subscribed. And if you're already subscribed to my newsletter and you haven't been getting it recently, just go ahead and like check your spam folder, see if my emails have been hiding there. Kindly put them into your inbox and add my email to your contacts so you get them regularly and get reflection questions just like this. Okay, so reflection questions for this Libra solar eclipse. I want you to look back. Who are you now that you weren't 12 months ago? I want you to get really curious and notice all of the subtle changes that you have gone through. I want you to also to reflect back on what are you done doing as it pertains to other people, whether it's giving your power away or comparisonitis like me, or looking for outward validation. What is that power dynamic that has taken power away from you that you are done with? I also want you to notice how your relationships have shifted, hopefully for the better. Are there new relationships that have come into your life with exciting people? Have you noticed your friends doing amazing things? I just noticed one of my mom friends, she recently got appointed to a California judge. Like, just my friends are just also doing amazing things. I have another mom friend who has a branding agency, and she's doing a lot of work for the San Francisco mayor. It's just like so many amazing things. So I'm seeing my relationships shifting for the better because I see my friends and my colleagues doing amazing things, right? Even my relationship with my husband has greatly shifted because just a couple of weeks ago, I was ready to call the whole thing off. So, how are your relationships shifting? How have they shifted, and hopefully for the better? And how can you connect the dots to the people in your life, that relationship shifting with how you have changed? Okay. I also want you to notice what kind of people are leaving. and what kind of people are entering your world. Remembering that if we go back to this beginning of the conversation, that we are integral part of relationships. When we change, our relationships change. It has to. They're, triangulated that way, energetically triangulated that way. And so I want you to notice if there are people leaving and, without holding on. Why are these people leaving? Are they, expecting you to stay small? Do they not want to grow with you? And, if you need to grieve that process, and when you grieve that process, understand in that grief is love, showing you what you really appreciated and what you truly desire in a relationship. Another question that you can reflect on is, how will you remind yourself to claim your personal respect, value, and accountability? So, for example, for me, it is bringing awareness to anytime I self deprecate. Or anytime I want to give discounts when discounts are not required, because I'm giving away my value, I'm giving away my own respect. Right. And so for you, how do you want to claim your respect, your value, and your accountability and make this into a habit? Even if this habit is just simply checking in with your body or starting to recognize when you have these repeating narratives or you start to do some of the things that you said that you are done with. Okay. And so I want you to create a plan to remind yourself to claim this, a daily reminder for yourself. And lastly, because of course this is still a new moon, how will you express this new version of yourself in this new cycle? Now, I know that's a big question. And when we have these big, deep questions, we'll come back to it or we don't understand this question. And I really want you to sit with this a moment and come to an understanding of what this question means to you. This question can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So, how will you express this new version of you? For me, it's I love going on my daily walks and my daily strength training because it makes me feel powerful. I don't do it for my outward looks. I do it to build my inner strength and my inner power. And so this new version of me takes care of their inner, like, physical strength. This new version of me, I'm not looking at social media very often, and I post whenever I want to post. I want to put my effort here into my podcast and to my YouTube channel. I want to put my effort into my existing community and my existing clients instead of just like searching and grasping. So those are a couple of ways that I'm expressing this new version of me. Well, another important thing is I'm actually claiming all of my roles without feeling this fear of overwhelming others. So for a long time, I didn't want to tell people that I was a professional musician. I didn't want to tell people that now I'm going to be a published author. I didn't want to tell people all of my successes and all of my blessings because I didn't want to be overwhelming for others. And now I want to inspire others by claiming all of these facets of me. I am a hard worker. I am prolific. I excel in the things that I do because I have these high standards, and I don't want to hide from that anymore. So I'm an amazing professional musician. I'm an amazing astrologer. I'm an amazing partner and mom, and I'm going to claim and express all of these different roles without hiding them for fear of overwhelming the other person. And so, what is that for you? How are you going to express this new version of you? Okay, so let's get into some affirmations a little bit differently this time. I have some Libra Solar Eclipse affirmations. I want you to use your rising sign for your affirmation, or if you know the house that 10 degrees of Libra exists, then that is the house that is being activated so that you can find your affirmation. Again, this is going to be in writing in that email. So if you're already on my newsletter, you'll get this in the newsletter. If you're not on the newsletter, head on over to starpower.com/starcast. Okay. So your affirmation starts with, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with ... Okay. So if you're an Aries rising or have 10 degrees of Libra in the 7th house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with putting others on a pedestal. If you are a Taurus rising or have that 6th house that contains Libra of 10 degrees, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with being in servitude to others. For Gemini risings, or if you have that 10 degrees of Libra in the 5th house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with overdoing to please others. For my Cancer rising or 4th house activations, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I'm done with comparing myself to others. For my Leo rising or 3rd house with 10 degrees of Libra in it, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I'm done with suppressing my needs. Tell people what you need, my Leo rising friend. If you're a Virgo rising or have the 2nd house being activated this Libra eclipse, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with feeling less than in relationship. If you're a Libra rising or have this in your 1st house or have the eclipse in your 1st house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with putting myself last or down. If you're Scorpio rising or have 10 degrees of Libra in the 12th house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I'm done with seeking external validation and codependency. For my Sagittarius risings or 11th house activation, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with taking one for the team. If you're a Capricorn rising or have a 10th house activation, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I'm done with obliging others. For my Aquarius rising friends, or if you have this Libra eclipse in the 9th house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I'm done with letting others determine my way. And lastly, for my Pisces rising friends, or if you have this eclipse in your 8th house, your affirmation is, I now create equitable relationships because I am done with allowing others to manipulate and control me. All right, my friends, I would love to hear. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know your affirmation in the comments. Okay, my friends, let's quickly go over October's StarCast, the astrology of October. If you want the written report of this, you can always get that on my StarCast. So head on over to starpower.com/StarCast. So overall, this month, I am calling October to deepen your peace. And the reason why I'm calling this to deepen your peace, because there is the vibe of some intensity, of some ability to be vulnerable, which requires emotional security. There's our opportunities to de-stress and to manage our energies, to manage our expectations, to express our boundaries. And so this is really for you to deepen your sense of peace by, being this, having these kinds of boundaries or this energetic protection that allows like any like psychic attacks or any kinds of jealousies or envies or anything that's coming at you to just bounce off. right? You're impenetrable because your peace is so secure from within. And so the highlights of October that are really supporting us, of course, we have on October 2nd, our eclipse, our solar eclipse on the new moon at Libra of 10 degrees. Then on October 4th, Mars enters its shadow zone. Dun, dun, dun. Mars is crossing that point of Cancer of 17 degrees, where it's going to be going from Cancer of 17 degrees all the way to Leo of 6 degrees on the first path before it then turns around in December and goes in retrograde. And so Mars won't be leaving the shadow zone all the way until February of next year. And so we have a long time to play with Mars retrograde energy. And so as Mars enters the shadow zone and is still going to direct, I want you to notice the things where you're feeling your energy drains, or you need to manage stress, manage your emotions, manage your expectations. Because when we have a Mars retrograde cycle, this is allowing us not to rethink, that's a Mercury retrograde, but to reactivate. Mars is our physical energy, and Mars in Cancer and Leo is really truly about reinventing how you shine. And so I'm really excited to start talking about that Mars. Now, if you're thinking about doing a web design project or a branding project, while Mars is in the shadow zone, you can get things planned and maybe finish things up if you've already started. But once Mars starts to go retrograde, because Mars rules Aries, and Aries is about identity and branding, right? You don't want to start anything new when Mars is going retrograde. Okay, so make sure once Mars goes into the shadow zone that you're really focused on finishing things up and launching things before Mars goes retrograde, because you're not going to have a good time to start launching brand new things until Mars is again direct. And so that's kind of a long time. That goes until February 2023. Oh, February 23rd, 2025 is when Mars goes direct again. Okay. Now on October 9th, Jupiter stops at 21 degrees of Gemini and hits the brakes and goes backwards. Now, when Jupiter is retrograde, because it's not now a personal planet, Jupiter is one of our social planets, we don't feel it as intensely as a Mercury retrograde or Venus or a Mars retrograde. Those are all our personal planets, but we still do feel these outer planets when they start to retrograde, especially on the few days before and after. So Jupiter will basically come to a complete stop already around the eclipse. When I was showing you that eclipse chart, that Jupiter retrograde, Jupiter got all the way to Gemini of 21 degrees. It's not passing that point. Okay. So if you have any energies that are near that 21 degree mark of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, all of those mutable signs, notice where your beliefs are being asked to expand. Okay, so Jupiter about our purpose, our beliefs, about the bigger picture, about seeing why, we get to recalibrate that. We get to re-believe. We get to re-inspire with our Jupiter retrograde. So it's not going to feel like super bumpy and really hard unless maybe you have like maybe one of a hard planet on those areas. So just start to notice that. Now, on October 11th, Pluto retrograde ends. So another time between October 9th and October 11th, with both of these two kind of outer planets shifting gears around the same time, even though Jupiter is going retrograde and now Pluto is going direct. it's around these times, that second week of October, a few days before October 9th and like a week after October 11th, this is going to be some kind of intense, kind of crunchy times because we're having so many energetic shifts. It's just like one wind is going this way, one wind is going this way, and you're like, whoa, where am I going? So just give yourself some extra time during this time and just start to notice if you're feeling under pressure, if you're, running yourself ragged. It can be a little bit intense, but again, harness that energy for what you will. On October 13th, we have Mercury moving into Scorpio. So your thoughts and your intuitive knowing come into alignment. A great time to sharpen your skills with your intuition and your trust. Then we have our full moon in Aries, not an eclipse. Our full moon in Aries happens on October 17th. On the same day that Venus leaves Scorpio into exuberant Sagittarius. So that's going to be a really fun energy. And then the sun enters Scorpio on October 22nd. So my friends, thank you so much for listening all this way. I hope that you spend some time with noticing what you are done with and deciding who you now are and the habits that you need to create that support your new identity with this beautiful eclipse. Thank you for listening. More soon. Bye. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.